Welcome to CRM Stories with me, Jerome Clatworthy. CRM Stories is a podcast where we talk with Salesforce professionals from all over the world about their careers and favorite Salesforce case studies. Today, we're joined by Brian Spitzer from Martech Ventures. Brian, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, beautiful. So whereabouts in the world are you sitting, Brian, as we have this chat?
Midwest, right? Like smack dab in the middle, Indianapolis area in Indiana.
Okay. Is that sort of where you grew up or just somewhere you've moved to later in life?
I think it's where I've grown up in my career, but
Okay.
I grew up in the Midwest and then all over parts of the United States.
Okay.
So,
And before we get too deep into Salesforce, just give us a real quick snapshot of what life looks like outside of that in terms of partners, dependents, pets, hobbies. What do you get up to if you're not doing Salesforce?
Yeah, that's good. When there's time to not be doing Salesforce, that's funny because it's, as I've always said, even with teams I've managed in the past, we've talked about this like work-life, balance, and I've always kind of said it's an integration, which affords a lot of flexibility, but then that's where you do find yourself available to do something at 9 p.m. at night till midnight, whatever, so.
Yeah.
It's kind of a special tech environment, I think. But outside of that, I do play a fair bit of golf.
Okay.
I love to travel.
Yeah. So
I've
golf's
been able
a good
to
reason
travel.
to go on a lot of trips and go to courses you want to play on? Is that...
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
It's a fun pastime of mine. So
yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. Outside of that, just spending time at home when I can. I used to travel a lot for work.
Okay.
So I like to travel now for leisure. I'd be okay with never spending another evening in a hotel room for work. Obviously, it's going to happen, but
yeah.
But I'd rather do day trips if I can. So travel's a big one for me. Go ahead.
Did COVID sort of fix that, realizing you didn't have to travel, or just the nature of the work you do now means you don't have to, sort of thing?
That's a great question because I've not had a physical office since 2013.
Wow.
So
okay.
I'm pretty old school when it comes to remote work. Work from anywhere in the world is kind of what I've always said. Any place I have good internet and so COVID wasn't that disruptive for me from a work perspective.
Yeah, sure.
And I'd actually say for me personally, COVID and coming out of the pandemic sort of allowed us to get things done faster, right? We don't have to wait till everybody can get in the boardroom in March.
Yeah.
We can maybe make a decision now in January, which, I've appreciated personally.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's cool. And so how did you first get started in Salesforce? Were you already doing sort of tech CRM stuff and you just specialize in Salesforce, or that was your sort of introduction to that whole sort of ecosystem?
Yeah, so I became a customer user in 2005 with Verizon.
Okay.
And then in 2008, I went to work for a company that Salesforce purchased at the time called ExactTarget. So on the marketing side.
Yep.
And so
is that what is now known as Marketing Cloud, or is that different?
It is Marketing Cloud. ExactTarget is Marketing Cloud. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of other, ancillary products that we purchased along the way. Buddy Media, some other things as well. Like, there's a bunch of different social platforms we purchased to bolster that. And then I stuck around for about 3 years after acquisition.
Okay.
And then started branching out on my own in 2015, 2016. And I've been in the ecosystem though pretty much the entire time. Then I went to lead a services team with a partner within Salesforce. So in SI, I had 37 folks at that company that I was responsible for in delivery.
Yep.
And then from there, I went on to lead solutioning teams that sold a lot of times like our products. Salesforce was our biggest strategic partner.
Yeah.
Bringing opportunities in and out. So.
Okay. So when you were at ExactTarget initially, what sort of role were you doing there? Like client work, or you were still came in as a sales sort of thing?
Yeah. No, I came in as what we called, I was the first locally based, what we called kind of like a technical producer was my first role. So building campaigns and email messages is what I started doing.
So hands-on helping clients actually get stuff working.
Yeah. On the services team, like the global services team. And then about a year into that, I worked my way into this group we created. It was like a SWAT team. So
Okay.
fly anywhere in the world, fix all the problems of,
Okay.
customers. And that's where I was really I was afforded to see the world through ExactTarget
Yeah,
and
right.
Salesforce's lens,
Wow.
which
Okay.
was great. Lots
Yep.
of really cool work. And that was really a really great experience. I think I'd have some really good stories out of that,
Yeah,
both
absolutely.
good and bad. But what was really interesting is, so like we're a team that's, the P&L for our team is inside of product and
Mhm.
development. So it's a cost center to the company, right?
Okay.
But I'm really proud of this stat. So on average,
Mm.
the 3 years that I created and ran that team, customers upsold on ExactTarget product 88% year over year for the
Wow.
customers we worked with who were having problems and ready to leave.
Really?
So yeah, there's kind of like I think one of the stories here, it's like for me, it's kind of I'd say it's anecdotal because it was every single customer. First thing we
Yeah.
do is, Jerome, we come in and I just want to talk with business leaders and the folks who bought the product
Mhm.
and sit down and ask them, like, why'd you buy ExactTarget, right?
Yeah.
Why'd you get involved with us? And
Yeah.
we
What was
just
the
took it
dream?
back to yep. We took it back to that single thing and spent the first half day on a whiteboard, just,
Yeah.
looking at that as like our North Star. Okay,
Yep.
here's where you wanted to get to. Here's where we are today. And then we come back like 2 days later with our recommendations on how to get them back to what they
Okay.
wanted.
Yeah. Right.
It was a great experience. I mean,
Yeah. Fantastic.
I got to see scale and a lot of other things that, I think have given me kind of a unique experience or a unique perspective in this ecosystem sense.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So you eventually end up doing client work there, and then you've obviously evolved to now doing client work for your own shop. Is that roughly the case in that same sort of space? Is that?
Yeah, it is. Do client work in our own shop with Martek.
Mm.
We've developed a bit of a niche. We're probably the go-to marketing cloud app PDO in the ecosystem. So if you want to build an app on Marketing Cloud, we're
Okay.
probably choice number one. In fact, we
Okay.
are number one.
Okay.
And then I think the other thing that's maybe unique about us, the other part I would probably preface is the last thing I typically think of is which platform or which cloud we might put a product on. Because we've
Okay.
had such a diverse and experience over time, we can
Yep.
build on all the clouds. So,
Yeah. Okay.
we're not typically going to put you into a niche and say, oh, that should be a Service Cloud app, or that needs to be, like an old Commerce Cloud container app, or whatever it might be. Or
Yeah. Okay.
the last thing I do is recommend the technology after we hear where they want data, where do they want the business value, where do they want to see reporting, right? And then we make
Yeah. Yeah. So real
that's
focus.
become our bread and butter.
And this is really maybe, because I'm definitely not a developer by any sense, but building a marketing cloud app compared to building an app for core, is it the same underlying foundation, or it's very different given the way the products sort of come in externally? Is it?
Yeah, they both reside in App Exchange, and that's where the consistency is.
That's it.
That's it. Everything
Yeah.
else is
Right. So
different.
yeah. Okay. So it's totally different underlying sort of platform and code base sort of thing.
Marketing cloud apps are kind of like a wild, wild west web app. Any
Yeah. Okay.
platform, any code base you want to put it in, right? You get a lot of
Okay.
Node, you get a lot of Python, but it's
Yeah.
just a
Right.
web app, custom web
Okay.
app.
All right.
Whereas,
So
we
a
know
lot more
that,
flexibility in that sense.
correct, tons of flexibility, but then also less rules, right? Less
Okay.
regulation, less guardrails in place. So it's a little more
Okay.
buyer beware.
So is security
And
review like
then
sort of harder in that sense, or do they sort of go harder on you because there is so much more
harder.
they can't control, or they kind of take it a bit easier because there's, I guess, so many limits to what they could
I
potentially
think
sort of screen for?
it's still pretty consistent when
Okay.
it comes to security review, though. Um, the guidelines are a bit different, right? What they're looking for, because
Yeah, sure.
you're a little bit of a more controlled environment building inside Apex on top of Force.com, and
Yeah.
working within the packaging requirements and whatever that looks like. So
Yeah, right.
yes, it's different, but I'd say our tenure now in the ecosystem, we have a pretty good idea of what they're looking for and how to, it still is a security review process, but we kind of know the big pieces to make sure you cover off and how you might build.
Yeah, okay. And if you had to
successfully.
really roughly put a number on it, how many apps do you think you've had approved developed through them?
Well, we did 16 and 23.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Market. Yeah. I'd say we're probably around 6 dozen, maybe.
Wow. Fantastic.
Something in that range. Yeah. Yep. And maybe a little less than 6 dozen.
They're usually pretty bespoke, one app for one customer, or they're things you are developing and having available for, I guess, general access, or a bit of both?
So good question, because there's the base framework which we can apply to another application. Everybody needs to have some sort of like onboarding experience. We got to connect to the marketing cloud. If it's a marketing cloud app, we need to connect data back to core, right? There's this sort of like bone structure, but then I mean it's an extremely custom experience. We also do a lot of cases like, we're working with companies sometimes who are emerging as far as their ecosystem experience in Salesforce and the App Exchange. So we're not afraid of getting in and writing a POC, building that out to prove out that, hey, let's build the V1 before we put all the investment in. Let's get started simple. Okay. That's something that we've actually become quite accustomed to and are not afraid of, because we've got a pretty good formulaic way to manage it.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. All very interesting. Well, what we love to do on this show is talk about specific stories and sort of case studies where you're able to. So specifically one that you can sort of think of that really just absolutely blew a business away in terms of the impact on revenue or productivity, depending on the type of organization it was. An example that was just really fascinating to you personally for whatever reason, whether it be the tech side of it or the use case. And then, something where things maybe didn't go so well, and I guess lessons learned because of that. Do you mind if we sort of move into that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'd love to. So I think I have kind of a... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. What's an example of something where you worked on where it absolutely just blew a business away in terms of the impact it had on whether it be revenue or efficiency, depending on the type of implementation it was?
Yeah, so I'll go back to some of the earlier stuff in the marketing cloud days. During my SWAT team tenure, I would say a couple of use cases specifically in the UK stand out for me. With some hospitality companies and travel companies that we worked with along the way, who were really struggling to scale the experience, especially when one company who purchased several other companies now had to write their messaging in 87 languages worldwide.
87 languages.
Yeah, including all of the RTL languages, including all the double byte over there in APAC, right? So,
my gosh,
it was quite an undertaking for my team and I to figure that out. That was more of an expansion, right? Once we got them on track, like, okay, this is great. Now we need to do this because we just purchased 2 companies in the APAC theater, and we're gonna need to expand this out. So. The success of that, right? Spending the next few weeks doing so and getting a plan together for us was an extremely rewarding process for ourselves, because it also kind of helped us stretch, and we got to test our product within ExactTarget at the time to figure out, could we even support all these languages, right? Like, do the databases support the languages? Can the script structure support it, right? How can we manipulate at the time? Gosh, what are we, HTML2 maybe? I'm trying to think where we were at that time, but 3 maybe. But anyway, rewriting script all the time to decide if it's RTL versus LTR, and how to handle things like that shouldn't be flipped, like the actual brand names of things. So
was there sort of provisions for that in ExactTarget? Was there provisions for that, or they had to sort of I guess evolve the product at the time as you were implementing that sort of thing?
We created them. I went back. So this is why the team lived in product. The team lived in product because that was one of the pieces, right? We would say, okay, our product doesn't do this today. This is like a hard requirement for moving forward and scaling and growing our business and this company as well. And in order to do so, I would go back then and work with our chief engineers to say, like, hey, we need to add this, we need these pieces. And then, what I would say is, one thing I'm always very cognizant of, especially at the scale we were already at, is technical debt. So I was always thinking like, okay, so let's do this, but how can we apply it to all of the customers we have, right? How do we make this a product offering versus a one-off feature that is going to push us further into that sort of technical debt piece to manage ongoing? But that's probably one of the most rewarding ones out of that group, outside of like the 88%, year over year stuff. I would say the other one that comes to mind is a different company, actually a number of companies. So the other thing I did is we sort of specialized in working with all the daily deal sites at the time.
Okay.
And in working with all of these daily deal sites around the world, the Groupons, et cetera, of the world, right?
Yeah.
That was extremely rewarding for us also to stretch our product, but then also to kind of understand the scale these customers have, because, their requirement was like, look, 75% of our sales happen in the first hour of going live. And if the messages are delayed, if the emails are delayed, if the messaging is delayed, then their revenue just goes like this. So it's extremely important for us to be able to move fast. I think the rewarding part there, or maybe the most interesting part of that for me, was getting involved at a very foundational level with Gmail and Yahoo and the other ISPs, so that we could seed messages at the scale we needed to, and ensure that 25 million emails would be able to be sent out of our product and in our messaging center, delivered in the inbox within 2 minutes across Gmail, across 25 million sends in that 2-minute span, which is kind of unheard of stuff, right? So that type of scale was really, really fun for me.
Yeah, so again, very naive here, but so when you are working at that sort of scale, are there sort of reps from those companies that you deal with around the technical side of it, like to say, this is what we're going to be sending to you guys, how do you want us to send it? Is that, or is it like, nope, here's our documentation, you read it and do your best?
Well, it was the latter at first, and we realized that wasn't going to work because we were still getting, not blocked, but we were getting throttled. So we had to break through that throttling and do that. And so we actually got the messaging up to 50 million a minute delivered from to Gmail. So think about that, 50 million messages delivered across Gmail's experience across the world, but mostly North America at that time. But 50 million in a minute delivered in the inbox.
So is the challenge just getting it to the user full stop, or also getting it into the right? Because obviously at that stage was there the whole battle between the inbox versus the promotions tab versus all those others. Was that a game, or it was just getting it in the inbox, and that was the main challenge at that sort of point in time?
We had pretty much licked the promotion versus not. We kind of took care of that piece already. At that time, it was really just about the scale of getting it in the inbox, because remember, that first hour is like 75% of sales. And every minute that hour is cut into, I mean, we're talking millions of revenue hourly, right? That are being calculated. So I'd say the flip side of those was the conversations where we'd have a customer come in and, messages don't always get out the way they need to, let's just say. And they would come in and say like, well, now that we missed the sale, we are asking for $1.5 million back on our contract today.
Wow. Okay. So they're not mucking around.
No, they're not mucking around. It's their lifeblood. And it's still true today. I mean, it's a different experience, I think, worldwide, but it's still true today. I mean, that type of scale is something that that type of scale is something that we at ET, I think, created, and obviously a bunch of companies have run with it, right, since. But that was something that we really, we were the pioneers in that, and I got to be at the front, I guess the driver's seat, if you will, in some cases with our organization to manifest that.
Yeah, right. So, how much of the challenge was the infrastructure on your side trying to get that much out at once? But like, where was the technical challenge? Was it in product, or is there some other intermediary that sort of deals with the actual quantity, like at a high level for non-techies?
It was first and foremost product. To build and set up that many messages just in our own product, right, with the right amount of services and resources, utilizing the APIs, whatever, right? Like getting that to work was number one. That was challenge number one. Then challenge number two was now delivering it through what we call an MTA, mail transfer agent, out to the ISP. And we have to get all this done, right, in seconds. So building new infrastructure, setting up a new data center, that kind of stuff was also part of that job to get to that scale.
Fantastic, man. That's amazing. And just very briefly back on the first one you mentioned around, I guess, the languages. So was the key satisfaction there just that multi-language support function? Was that was the key win in that other sort of case study you mentioned?
Initially, but there's a huge revenue component to this as well, right? And that huge revenue component is the millions in bookings daily that they're now able to successfully, because the colloquialism as well is an important factor, right? Not just like getting the language right, great, but translation is important. Placement on the page is important at that time, placement in the inbox, right? Above the fold, like what they can see, et cetera. And we did a really good job of increasing bookings over 50% for them year over year, quarter over quarter.
Huge.
The numbers were higher than that, but that's what they shared with us. Like it was a 50% bump. And, they don't want to share obviously too much of that, because then we would probably be able to say, well, then I think your subscription should be here, not here.
Actually, yeah. Did I let you know prices are also going up? Yeah, that's funny.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, fascinating.
Something like that.
And one more on the multi-language, was the product like essentially auto translation, or just made it easy for them to input? Like, to what extent was it? Here's one plain English message that can then take care of half of those, or it was still they had to manually find someone to customize each message to certain.
It was both. Okay. We did put some API plugins and hooks into Translate at the time, which were great and gave like 90% of the way there for a lot of customers. Okay. Yeah, but then you also have customer brand, which comes into play, and their expectation is like, well, that's not really in our voice, so we're going to do this instead.
Okay.
And then they'll go find local translation typically.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, whenever it came to that. Yep.
Have you kept your tabs on that technology? Has auto translate stuff like got that much better in recent years, or it's still about the same? Like, have you had much exposure to it in more recent times, or haven't seen?
I mean, the API availability is much better, right? And now AI makes it stupid simple. One of the things I'm actually working on now, and this is going to be kind of like one of the other. So if I talk about like use cases, so one thing that I've done too as well is I've actually built a product that sits on top of AppExchange that sort of builds and manages up to like 40 journeys inside a vertical for customers sitting on Marketing Cloud, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. And so we built this product that basically is journeys in a box, right? Allows you to activate journeys inside days, allows you to, really jumpstart the journey experience. So where you have 1 or 2 journeys running, you could install our product and have 40 next week. Which is a pretty, a pretty big feat. And I kind of mentioned that as the other sort of use case, because that, I guess, use case and study is because I saw this over and over again, which is why I built this product, because we put this together because we kept seeing this challenge. We'd sit in boardrooms for 4 to 6 months, build out these journey plans and go through these, complex customer journeys with customers who were big Salesforce customers, bought in on all clouds. But they just struggled, regardless of size, they just struggled to kind of get adoption moving. So we've created a product that helps manage adoption ongoing.
Okay. So what type of journey, what type of journeys could, is it just that you've already sort of strategized or like a template out of the box, these things just came up, so you've sort of, I guess, templatized those and they can just sort of pick and choose what's relevant, what's good? Like what are some examples that you've sort of mapped out that have come up over and over?
Yeah, it is a pick and choose of your own experience. We also can do custom journeys on top of the product drum. And the reason I'm kind of mentioning here with the AI piece is I've been working very diligently on this, what we call the curation manager. But when you ask that question around technology and where that's going and all that piece, the reason I was tying that back in is we're building a plugin on our curation manager with, GPT to click a button, create messages, click a button, add copy, click a button. Eventually you'll be able to talk to it and build journeys inside Salesforce in flows as well as Journey Builder.
Wow.
So it's
Okay. And in terms of how does it get the sort of parameters for the type of copy? If it's click a button, here's some copy. Is it's reading sort of from data on the page, or are you saying, give me a sentence to talk about product X in a positive way, or how's it getting the inputs to know what to give back?
I mean, it's just talk to ChatGPT and the curation manager will tell you. So I've been teaching it. We've been having it learn, and we've been giving it, context. For the demo, I added in this idea of like, so build, the verticals. We specialize in banking, regulation, regulated industries, retail, high tech, healthcare, those kind of industries. So, a lot of those that are aligned
really
to some of Salesforce core industries.
Yeah, sure.
And some of them, very regulated. But one of the things we can do with the product then is you can talk to it, and I've told it to add this sort of, touch of dad humor in the way that it speaks in tone. So it'll give you back, copy that has dad humor mixed in, like, dad jokes, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Have you explored or come across any, I guess, legal limitations in terms of output from, ChatGPT? Does it then have to be cleared by sort of legal before it can be put in journeys, or you haven't found that to be too big of a deal, like given it is such a regulated space that you're playing in?
Yeah, we haven't found that to be too big of a deal because that we're not building, copy that the customer is going to go just run with. They have to go to legal anyway in these regulated industries.
Okay.
So this probably gets them, this can do 98% of it for them, right? And then they're,
speeds up that first draft process dramatically. No.
Yeah, because whether it's journeys, whether it's implementations, whether it's integrations within Salesforce, I think, I wrote down these like keys that I have, right, that I think about for like keys for success with Salesforce for customers as well as partners and SIs, et cetera. Doing too much at once is typically the challenge I find, and not having a clear sort of like quick win goal, right? So my keys essentially, if I kind of back this into that, right, is trust is number one, right? So not just trust, because in Salesforce thinks about trust, but also trust in the implementation partner. In my case, my product, right? Our product called Orchestra. That, because there is still a great asymmetry in this marketplace where the consumer, the buyer, if you will, even though they have a lot of information, they might come into this buying cycle 60% ready to go, right? Before they were a lot further behind, but there's still a ton of asymmetry in the technology. And you're dealing with people that are like, well, I bought Salesforce because I'm not an expert at CRMs and marketing, et cetera. I bought that because, I sell medical equipment. You guys are the experts in that. So I think really understanding your role, and taking a lot of care and empathy with that understanding of asymmetry is extremely important for success. I found that to be kind of one of those keys. Iteration, I cannot stress iteration enough. And that's one of the reasons we built that product, because we were just seeing everybody trying to boil the ocean all the time. And I'm like, just get started. Get 3 quick wins. Let's get 3 goals in place. Let's measure those, and let's just build from there. So I think just trust and getting people adopting quickly, with a really nice, clean roadmap of like, hey, we're going to take you here, then we can go here, and then we can do this, right? We can get on the rocket ship and do whatever it is you want to do. But I've found
that has come up.
That's
come up over and over again in other conversations around that need to, get a minimum product out there, get them using it, because not only that will help them understand, I thought that's what we wanted, but that was useless or didn't work at all, or didn't work, and then they have, but I realized this could help, and that will change things, and I had no idea that was even a possibility. So getting them in there and actually using the system in a simple way is so important and often overlooked when we want to spend more time on the front end before we even deliver something they start using.
Yeah, it is, because I think, failure is an interesting thing, right? Because for me, we look at things like failure, struggles, whatever those are. Obviously, there's these teachable moments, but even more, they're necessary for exception in the future. You can't get there in the first iteration. You're never going to get there. It's not, you're not going to have it perfect on day one. And so being willing to fail within a guardrail because it fits inside your goal, that's important. The data from that, to me, is extremely important for success in the future.
Yeah, so I think corporate world overall is getting better in that sense, but it still does have a slight negative connotation overall, doesn't it? Like the word failure, whereas, there's a lot of mantras these days of fail forward, fail fast, that kind of thing, where it's more and more understood that it's critical to, like, all right, what have we learned? Boom, let's go again and change. Okay, next, let's iterate. Boom, let's keep going. So yeah, fascinating.
But often I think what happens is you're not allowed to fail when there's too much at stake revenue wise. So you don't have the ability to fail if you have to perform, right?
Yeah.
If the time crunch is there and you have to perform, there's no room to fail. So that's what I like about this idea of like, hey, it's an iteration. Let's take it slow. Let's start here. It's okay if we fail. Like you said, fail forward, fail fast, right? Let's learn from it. I often think that the revenue tied to something, or like an implementation specifically, where you have a $500,000, $250,000 implementation, you've got all these goals in place and all these things you have to hit. Oftentimes that becomes more of a challenge because you aren't given the room to fail within the guardrails to learn, so you can be better next time.
Yeah, I was going to say, how often is that a barrier? Like, obviously, if you guys are walking in with that mentality, how often is that defined? How often are clients like, yep, we're the same, that's in line, or you really got to sort of take them on that journey to understand the benefits of that sort of philosophy? Is it often a challenge?
We typically have to take them on. Yeah, we take them on that journey. I mean, in my world, it's funny though, there's no such thing as the word no, right? Everything's a yes and for what I do. So like, yes, we can do that. And here is the trade-off. I think the expectation setting becomes so key for success now and in the future. But as far as the failure piece, I mean, there's room, right? I always give room for our team. Like, I want to know, let's, like it goes way back in time. You can always use Edison's, finding several thousand ways not to build a light bulb. Like, that's an interesting one, right? For Americans anyway. Like, that's one that we always talk about. That's a good moniker of failure and success from it. But yeah, I mean, I give room for it. I think it's important. And that's why I talk a lot about, even with like the product we built with journeys, it's like, just get the first 5 going. We have these 5 journeys. You can just do them right out of the box, click a button and go, see some success, and then launch the other 23.
Yeah. Okay. So are those journeys just a bit more into that? Are they sort of, I guess, sector agnostic, or with that product, is there like categories for the big sectors you work in, or the journeys are sort of general enough that you then customize it to the vertical?
It's a little both. I mean, we do offer to the customer to build custom and configurable journeys within the product. So we allow that to happen, which is a lot of fun for us. But at the same time, we do have kind of that first 5 I talk about. So referrals, CSAT, a newsletter of some kind, maybe a product offering, or product onboarding, or customer onboarding. Those are kind of the typical ones we see that just happen, regardless of the vertical. That works. Healthcare, banking, financial services, right? But then if you get a little more nuance, like we go into banking, which is one of our big sectors today, in Fins, we have specific journeys for launching your credit card, using your debit card, adoption of online banking features and bill pay and the mobile app, and all this, product value add that they have. That's something that
each vertical's got their own milestones about what's going to be really important in terms of getting that client in the system and likely to stay and likely to take more products and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. How do you build the customer for life, right? How do you create the stickiness factor that you're looking for? We sort of aim to get that started and give you data to build into it.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's fascinating. Anything else you want to, any more on the list there before we talk about something that didn't go so well?
No, I think, I'll kind of summarize this sort of didn't go so well. A number of times we would walk into those conversations and kind of not the SWAT team alone, but just along the way. I think it's something I've learned in my career, of these things that don't go so well, right? What I've learned, especially in implementations, and the customer is definitely spending a lot of money, resources, et cetera, time. Whether it's our fault, it's our fault.
Yeah.
And that's just how we think about it. We just go into that mindset. Like, I may not be to blame, but you know what? We're accountable and responsible because, like, we're here. So, first thing I do is I listen. We listen to the customer. They voice all the concerns. And one thing I found off the back of that, it's worked pretty well for us, even a lot of these failures, if you will, is listening, People will tell you what they want to talk about in the first 5 minutes of why they're there. You're going to get it figured out, right? Just got to listen actively.
Yeah.
We have two of these, one of those.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And what we then do, and what I often do is I, you apologize, right? Whatever that looks like, you lay on the sword, whatever it is. And then what we often do coming out of it is to say, something to the effect of like, I can go back and I can get you all the information on what it is that went wrong, or I can start helping you today with what you need. So let's put that list together. I can help you now, or I can help you sometime in the future. And we can go do all the research. And you know what? Every single time except for one case, they opt for us to help them now.
Yeah, let's go then. All right, thank you for that. Let's start. Boom.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest kind of takeaway, high level on failures, right? Because there's been a number of those. Because as I talked about, like I have zero qualms about failing, learning from that failure, and moving forward. Because I think even when we fail, we probably got 80-something% of it right, which means we're doing better than most.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just that last 15%, 20% that we got to figure out, or 22%, and we'll get there. But you don't get there without the failure.
Yeah, and I think it makes such a difference to take responsibility, because even if they told you what they want and you build exactly what they asked for, you could say that's their fault, not mine. But then you can easily flip that and say, well, we didn't do a good enough job exploring your requirements. So understood, we'll take that on. Yeah, there's no way that there's almost no situation where you couldn't take personal responsibility for it in that approach and then move forward, is there?
No, because that asymmetry is so active there, right? You know more than them, you're the expert. So their gaps are so far typically, right? They have many of them. And so it's like, okay, you got to bridge them, which means you got to take accountability for it regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Big learning there. I love that. Cool. Anything on there before we move on to a few techie geek out questions that I like to ask before we wrap up?
Yeah, no, let's go with geeky questions. I'm good.
All right. iPhone or Android? Where you at? Which side of the fence do you sit on?
Blue bubbles.
Which one's that?
iPhone.
Yeah, beautiful. Good. We're on the same team. That's nice. Mac or PC? You guys on Macs if you're in marketing world? What's that?
So
still PC?
Mac. No, Mac for 15 years now, maybe even longer, because it's actually a better developer machine. Comes out of the box, right, with all the tools inside terminal.
Ready to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Behind Macs. And what are you guys using in-house to sort of, I guess, communicate and manage your projects? What's your internal tech stack?
Well, I mean, we're Salesforce partners and whatnot. So we have Slack, number one. Text message a lot. We use Discord channel as well at times.
Okay. For just the more random questions and ad hoc in communication?
That, or just because we just don't want to type it out on like an iMessage or whatever.
Have
a little bit more flexibility. So we use Discord a lot for those kind of text things.
Okay. And what about project management? Are you in Jira, or how are you keeping track of all the granular details in development and stuff?
Working with customers in Jira, but we've used Asana historically.
Okay. Yeah, that works around. Happy with that.
I like the visualization for customer experience, so the customer can see quickly. I think it's an easier interface for the customer to interact than Jira is, for sure.
Okay.
If they're not a Jira shop already.
Yeah, right. Nice. And if you were CEO of Salesforce for the day, what's one thing you would change, whether it be bug fix or product development? Is there sort of one thing that you're like, oh, I wish I could just wave your magic wand and change something about Salesforce? Or
if I were Mark for the day, I think I have two of them. One of them is kind of geeky techy. I'll just say it.
Yeah.
If you build flows inside of a product and manage in a managed package, they cannot be changed after deployed. So nothing can change inside a Salesforce flow. Yeah. So we built a workaround to make that.
Okay.
Yep. You can't change them. So I would get on top of that. If you were going to scale the product and start using flows to manage all interactions, you're going to need flexibility there. On the geeky side, that's the one I would change. The other one, though, that I would probably change is just, better transparency with the last 2 years.
Okay. In what sense? Like,
From risks to announcements, to
Yep.
changes, to the worst secrets in technology that are still there.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody
All right.
knows them, like Exodus
Yeah.
and entry of new people.
Okay.
It's all there. Salesforce is too
Yeah.
big. You can't hide it, and I don't think the ecosystem's done a fantastic job.
Okay.
The last couple of years of being transparent.
Okay. Interesting. Haven't heard that one. That's cool. And in terms of, I guess there must be cases where you inherit an existing org. What sort of things have you seen in terms of maybe poor practice themes that when you take on an existing org or existing configuration that you think people should be mindful of when they're implementing for a client? Is there sort of certain patterns or themes that come up?
Yeah, I got two. Hard-coded everything inside of Dev for App Exchange apps, especially on Core.
Okay.
Hard coding like everything, like including Salesforce IDs of opportunities and accounts and just like stuff like that. Yeah, so that's the techie one, I'd say, like the geek one. And then the other one I see sort of holistically is I do see a lot of teams try to solve for everything for these customers. As opposed to giving them kind of a roadmap, and you get to it and it's just the customer's like, oh, I need this, but I need that field, I need this, and I want to connect to that object. So you've got all these relationships all over the place that I look at that and I'm like, that should be like two things.
So just piecemeal development. Did this one day because I wanted it. The next day we added this field because I wanted that field. The next day we did this. Whereas if they put the brakes on a bit and stood back and asked some bigger questions, they might have been able to get a better outcome a lot more efficiently, maybe.
Yeah, because I think a lot of SIs don't know how to say yes and. They know how to say yes.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to say yes and, which is always the part that I'm, very keen on, which is like, yes, and this is what that means.
And that's
so yes, we can
Salesforce because it can pretty much do almost anything you think of. We could probably make it happen somehow, but and that'll also mean need a developer full time to manage that. The implications of that every time you want to change one thing. Yeah.
Yes, and this is 500 extra hours based on what you want to integrate with your EHR. So maybe we don't go there right now. Yeah, but I don't say that part. I just, you put it back to the customer like, hey, yes, we can do it. And here's the trade-off.
Yeah, sure. Cool. And how many hours do you think you work in a week on average? What would you average smooth it out to?
60 something probably.
Okay.
I'd say somewhere in there.
Sort of late at night stuff to complement the workday, or you're up nice and early. What is it? How does it happen?
That ebbs and flows actually. More West Coast customers equals later nights, obviously for me.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that happens a few days a week, I'd say. I can get started a little bit later. But yeah, it's probably somewhere in the 60 number, I think, at this point in my career.
Yep. And I guess what's the perfect day for you? Door locked, just under the hood, or you want to be talking and meeting with people? What's your preferred mode of operation these days?
It's probably a half and half.
Okay.
But
so you enjoy a bit
less 30. Yeah, I want to be in front of the customer because I want to hear what people are talking about. I like to get the feedback. I like to have the interaction. But I do not love 30-minute meetings.
Okay.
14 or 15
too long
30-minute meetings in a day. No, they're so short.
Okay.
The 30-minute meetings, like when you have them,
enough time to get into it.
Well, it's not even that. We get into typically the conversation. I just don't remember what I said at 9 a.m. by 3:30.
Yeah. Okay.
Like there's just so many meetings, right? When you have the 30 minutes, and I get like we're gonna have them, and I think they're great.
Yeah.
But I'd also just say like for me, like those are the days I don't love. Is the 30-minute meetings back to back.
Yeah. You walk out at the end of the day, not knowing which way's up.
Yeah. I think the ideal day for me though is where I get to, like right now when I'm working on a lot of this GPT stuff within the AI and the APIs. That's exciting for me. I like to get a few hours in on that almost every day if I can. So it's kind of a half and half. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, I guess the next question was going to be on AI. So obviously you're seeing huge value of it in terms of text generation and things like that, copy. And do you think that's the key benefit that we're seeing right now? Like how long until you think, the role of an admin or somebody that's working under the hood sees a real change in their day-to-day life from AI in the Salesforce world?
Yeah. I think the change is already happening, but I
Okay.
don't think it's replacing
Okay.
anybody.
All right.
I don't feel that that's the role of what AI is going to do. I mean, it's doing all these things that should just happen anyway, right? But the human brain and the sort of like free will and cognition that we have,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's still, it's not going to take your jobs away. I don't see it that way. I just see it altering, higher brain function, like what we need to be doing, right?
Yeah.
I love that I can talk to GPT and it could build me like a framework for a Node app, because
How
that's
cool is
like
that?
mindless things, right? Like, it's like
Yeah.
mindless stuff to do. But what it
Yeah.
can't do is it can't, design the user experience the way I need it to.
Mm.
At least not today. And then also when it gets into like specific feature sets, not there yet, right? We'll get there a little bit, but it still has to come from somewhere. It's not just going to be, out of thin air. This happens,
Yeah.
right? There's
Totally
still
agree.
a component. I've got to drive what I want AI to do for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the work smart part for me.
Yeah, and I think it just gives us more time to do the things that only humans can do, and it does. And I just find, because some people love typing words and other people find it an absolute drag, and it takes all their energy to try and compose a paragraph that meets their needs. But the fact here's 3 facts, give me a synopsis or give me an email template about blah. That's such a, I just find it so useful in that sense. Or here's a formula that's not working, or give me a formula for boom, or that kind of stuff that, you could do it,
Yep.
but you can sort of get pretty close in 2 minutes and then spend 5 minutes tickling it up and you're good to go, instead of taking a couple of hours like you would have. Like, for that sort of stuff, I think it's phenomenal. But we've seen the challenges of a lot of the other AI products as soon as they deviate from opportunities and accounts and contacts. So given the customer, given the customer development in so many orgs, like, I can't imagine a single product that's going to come in and be fantastic at everyone's, weird and wonderful orgs they've got set up. So yeah, I totally agree. I don't see the threat, just see the benefit. And yeah, if someone's not adding value,
Absolutely.
then they might be worried. But for someone who's actually adding value and, talking to humans and trying to understand the situation and how that could be improved, it can only be a help, I think.
I'd agree completely.
Cool.
I mean, it's really gonna help. Like you said, I think it will. It just speeds up the things that take time today that shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I actually find it actually helps me stimulate my brain even faster.
Yeah.
By
Right.
leveraging it.
Cool. Yeah, fantastic. Love that. All right. Well, that was awesome, Brian. I love hearing all the different responses to those. So that's my interrogation complete, but please tell us a bit about Martech Ventures and what you guys can do for people.
Yeah, I'd love to. So like I said, we're kind of a niche as far as the app exchange space is concerned. Typically, we build apps on top of the ecosystem. A growing part of our business, though, now has become go-to-market consulting, as well as security review consulting. And, taking it from MVP to V1 consulting, we do a lot of that. I'd say I spend about a quarter of my week right now consulting with companies who are building on their own on top of the app exchange space. And so, we're just taking that expertise and saying, hey, here's how I might recommend it. You guys obviously have some goals, et cetera, in mind. And here's what my experience tells me. And customers seem to appreciate that quite a bit. So that's something we're doing a lot of.
Marketing Cloud or just app development across the board? It's more so in that marketing.
It's really both. Okay. Yeah, it's both. I mean, Marketing Cloud for sure because of the experience, right? Kind of a very unique experience there. But no, it's not just Marketing Cloud. It's definitely across all the clouds that we can service.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, that's kind of what we're up to for this year. And then, like I said, the App Exchange product, I'm heavily involved in the AI side of getting that, building up that product and bolstering its functionality. We do offer about, I think the number is, we have 185 journeys available in market today. So there's a way to get started, right? Any of those companies
that's in that one product,
banking,
or there's a few products that's in that single product?
No,
it's called Orchestra.
It's just that product. Yeah, Orchestra with a K, not a CH. So orchestrainc.com is the site, and then martechventures.com obviously is our site. to get more information, but also reaching out to the Salesforce ISV team for any customers and partners, and they can connect us as well.
Brilliant. Oh, well, I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, so I'll bring it to an end, but I'll just finish off. What's something on the horizon that's exciting for you, whether it be at work or outside of work? What's something that's exciting coming up?
So I think probably like spring break, some time there.
Got a few courses on the hit list that you're going to visit.
A recharge.
Yeah.
Well, nice. I do have a golf trip planned.
Oh yeah,
I do have a golf trip planned. Yeah, we do one every year. We're going up to a place called Sand Valley in Wisconsin this year. So
okay,
that'll be a lot of fun. There'll be a golf trip. That's true. And then I think on the work side, though, I'm really excited about the advent of utilizing AI to help bolster the offerings.
And just got me another question. Do you think OpenAI is going to be the leader there, or is there anything else you're aware of that's coming sort of from a competitor that's even close to being useful, or the OpenAI stuff is the only things on the market at the moment?
Well, there are, but I think we've sort of defined a clear winner, right? I mean, I think it's. Yeah. I kind of see that as potentially it's even over, but then that shift, the paradigm shift is going to happen. This isn't this is not the last generation of it. So for now it is OpenAI. I can't say whether or not I'm going to 5 years from now I'd put that bet down, but for now, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
That's where the development is, and that's where all the companies are bought in.
Yeah, right. Cool. Oh well, thanks again, Brian. Appreciate that, and have a great day, mate.
You bet. Yeah, you too. Thanks, Jerome. Thanks.